أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be upon you. Welcome. My name is Gulhan Yildiz, and I'm the Community Engagement Facilitator for Siraat College. On behalf of Siraat College, firstly, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting and working on what has always been and always will be the land of the Wurundjeri, of the people of the Kulin Nations, and that Indigenous sovereignty has never been ceded. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and any elders we may have here with us today. On behalf of Siraat College, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Social Media for Social Change webinar. This has been a webinar that's a long time coming, and it's a part of the Interfaith Youth Forum project that we've been working with together with our wonderful partners, many of which are in the room with us today. We've got our partners, St Monica's College, we've got Cinespace, Whittlesea Interfaith Network, Victoria Police, Our Race, and the City of Whittlesea, who have all supported this program, and it's also a Victoria government funded program. This webinar is a part of a series of projects and events aimed at taking a grassroots approach to racial and religious discrimination. So the idea of this project, the Interfaith Youth Forum project, is something that we applied for shortly after the Christchurch mosque attacks, which it feels like it was a lifetime ago, but it was actually just last year. And what we wanted to do was take that grassroots approach and empower young people in particular to be able to develop content in a variety of platforms to share their stories and to share their truths. Today's webinar will feature a wonderful panel of guests, and we'll explore how young people can reclaim their own narrative and shape public narrative using a range of accessible media, while also touching on media literacy when dealing with mainstream media. This webinar also follows on from fantastic sessions run earlier by Our Race, called the Transformational Ethical Storytelling, and that also looked at racial literacy and leadership through story lens. We'll start by hearing briefly about what each of our speakers are doing on social media, and I think you'll find there's enough diversity and a range of platforms to really keep us interested. And finally, we should also mention that this session will be recorded so that we can take a few clips for a short documentary that we're working on, but we will reach out to you if we want to feature anything you say in the short film. So let's get underway. Our first speaker, bear with me one moment. So we've got our first speaker, Daniel Schultheis. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, I apologize. He's worked as a screen editor and community filmmaker for more than 15 years. He's the founder of Cinespace, one of our respected and greatly supportive partners in this project. He's a non-profit, Cinespace is a non-profit organisation developing filmmakers from diverse cultures and faiths across Victoria, and was recently also the judge, one of the judges at the 2020 Muslim Film Festival. So I'll just hand it over to Daniel. Spotlighting Daniel.
Making movies about, you know, the life.
new generation of storytellers who want to change the world and change how we see ourselves within it.
The tools and training and opportunities that will enable them to level out the playing field.
Okay, hello, lovely to meet everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. We're good. Okay. It's such a privilege to be really invited to speak here tonight with these wonderful other creative people who are, really creating some amazing work and having real impact with that work. And there's also a commonality, I think. The people that are here on the panel tonight, they're also choosing really to tell their own stories in their own unique way and in their own voice. And this idea of storytelling from really a grassroots level is what's driven me personally, I'd say, for the past 16 years. Whether it's education or running workshops or working within communities or producing with independent filmmakers, it's for me the creative industries, they don't really exist without a really broad definition of what stories are and stories that reflect society as it really is. As opposed to perhaps a more artificial construct sometimes by mainstream media organizations. Especially today with new technology like smartphones, we're able to film, we're able to edit really great looking films or social media content. We're able to reach audiences anywhere. It's never been easier to kind of tell stories from the inside out, not just, stories from the outside looking in. And as Gulhan mentioned earlier, this idea of retaining power and authenticity over your own stories was something that was explored in our race workshops recently with this project. So I definitely recommend checking them out. And Gulhan, maybe you can type in the Our Race link in the chat for people. So stories, whether they're on, for social media platforms or in other places like film festivals, hopefully some people here got to catch the amazing lineup of films recently at the Muslim Film Festival. They can be really powerful tools. They can illuminate what makes us human. They can make the personal universal. They can provide different perspectives or challenge, mainstream narratives. And importantly, I think through conversations or through shared experience, stories, bring us together. They bring people together. I don't have long, but I'm going to touch on two very brief ideas in my introduction, and welcome to ask more questions later. The first is this, that you can really start today using your phone to make films and to make, really great looking content and films. Cinespace run free workshops. So if you're interested in finding out more, do get in touch, but here's a few quick tips. So if you're filming a film with your phone, hold it the right way. So if you're making something for YouTube or a film festival, hold it horizontally. If you're doing something for social media, you might hold it vertically. If you tap and hold on your screen, you can actually make sure your shots are in focus and you can adjust the brightness and darkness of your film. Try to avoid taking shaky footage unintentionally. That's just practice, but there's also some things you can do, like it's a great paper cup trick here. If you cut little notches in a paper cup, you have an immediate tripod for your film. It was one of the best things I ever learned, and it's cheap. The microphones on phones aren't great, so if you're doing someone's voice, try to find a quiet space and don't be too far away from them. Think about what's in the frame when you're filming and how you can use those shots to tell a visual story without necessarily having to say it. And you can also practice editing your stories together using free apps, freely available apps like iMovie or Adobe Rush or Power Director. And you can access all of those for free. So there's a few quick technical tips. The second point I wanted to make is you don't always need to wear your message on your sleeve as a filmmaker. While awareness or advocacy campaigns or impact documentaries or social experiment films can really challenge us intellectually, there's also a real power, I think, in the more subtle tool of telling narrative stories that can appeal, I guess, as much to the heart as it can to the head. By seeing characters in, say, a drama short film or a series, characters that aren't the same as us, we start to have a much broader and more inclusive view of the world. So I think that's the subtle power of story. And it's more important than ever, as we see that the power of media or social media can also be misused or have the opposite effect, and polarize or divide us if it's used the wrong way. I'll also share in the chat link there's a great article written by a local filmmaker, Tony Ayres, which I think explains this idea really well about how stories can be effective tools for change in a much more poetic way. So just to summarize my introduction, very brief as it is, I think the power to tell stories in film or on any of the other platforms, as we'll hear from some of the other speakers talk to us about tonight, it's in all of our hands. So I encourage all of you to use these platforms to start to tell your own stories. And certainly we'll include a link to Cinespace too, and encourage anyone to get in touch if they're interested in filmmaking. Thank you. Gulhan.
Thank you so much for that, Dan. Our next speaker is Mobinah Ahmed. She's the managing editor of the Australasian Muslim Times newspaper and the AMUST Goes Global digital platform. She's worked with the Australian Human Rights Commission in anti-racism and Islamophobia, and has extensive experience as a social media analyst and consultant, a professional photographer and filmmaker. She's a multimedia journalist, project and event manager, amongst many, many other things. Welcome, Mobinah.
Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings.
So I think we're just going to play your clip.
Sure, yep.
Sorry.
Let's now speak to Mobinah Ahmed, who is the managing editor of the Australasian Muslim Times. Eid Mubarak to you.
Eid Mubarak, Assalamu alaikum.
Fear, there's a sense of paranoia, like, is that person just looking at me because, you know, he's having a bad day, or is it because what's just happened in the media?
It's a holy switch. If you too would like to be able to tell your friends, whether they're in your top 5, your outer circle, or mere acquaintances, watch on. Here's Monique Shafter.
I have so many friends on Facebook, like hundreds and hundreds of friends. Back to school, ring the bell. Out of the 400 Facebook friends that I have, I would say I have 1 to 2 real friends.
It's 4 in the morning and Ramadan's just begun. Mobinah Ahmed, her father Zia and their Indian-Australian family are up well before dawn to eat and pray.
The Australasian Muslim Times is flourishing.
People want to open the newspaper and see themselves visually represented. The newspaper is quite high quality content. It's got beautiful images. My name is Mobinah Ahmed. I'm 31 years old and I'm an Australian Muslim woman. This is Ramadan on lockdown. Thank you so much, Gulhan, and thank you so much to Daniel for putting that together. It's so special to see 10 years of your life summarized in a video in terms of all the things I've done with the media. So thank you so much, and I'm so grateful and excited to be here tonight. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in to watch tonight. I hope you get so much out of this session, and I can't wait to answer your questions. My name is Mobinah Ahmed. So Mobinah means someone who is open, real, and clear. And Ahmed actually means, the pronunciation is Ahmed. Ahmed means someone who is worthy of praise. So I've really sort of grown into my name, I would say, in that sense that I'm a wonderful communicator. I'm very confident, and I believe a lot of that is what led to my current success. When I look back at that video and look at all the times I've appeared on TV to talk about my faith, discussing the fear of Islam and Muslims in Australia, I talked about Islamophobia way before I really formalized my learning in it. So I kind of just jumped into whatever media interviews or opportunities that were available without thinking, oh, do I know enough? Can I do this? I just sort of went for it. And when I look back, I'm like, I didn't really know anything at the time compared to what I know now. But I'm really proud of the fact that I just went for it. And yeah, and so I worked with the Race Discrimination Commissioner last year for quite a while, and looked at Islamophobia from the Muslim community's perspective. I lived in a Jewish household for 10 days, and that was one of the best experiences of my life, I have to say. I went to a Christian school for 8 years, Methodist Ladies College, MLC. So I grew up constantly being challenged about, why do you do this and why don't you do that? And, you know, when I was offered this opportunity to live in the Jewish community, I just went for it because I love being challenged, essentially. And I believe that when you are challenged, it helps you to really discover who you are and what you believe in. So you're not always in this comfortable little bubble. So I'm a huge advocate to always challenging myself. Yeah, and you know, I didn't want to only be seen for my faith. Like, obviously, I'm a visually represented Muslim. Like, I wear the hijab. It's pretty obvious that I'm a Muslim, but there's so much more to me than that. So I decided to, I guess I didn't even I didn't even contact the media for a lot of things. They sort of found me. And when it came to my friendship theory that I developed, it just kind of happened. And an ABC reporter sort of contacted me and said, we want to do a feature. And this was the first time I did something with the media that had nothing to do with me being a Muslim. It was just literally my own ideas that was really interesting. And I didn't want to be just seen for my faith. I wanted to be seen, I didn't want to be seen as a Muslim woman only talking about Muslim things, because although I love my religion and it's a huge part of me, there are so many other parts other than my religion that make me who I am. You know, and I think that's really important as well. So not only should we have Muslims talking about Muslim things, but we should also have Muslims talking about non-Muslim things or other Muslim things or things that pertain to them that doesn't relate to their religion. I'm so grateful and blessed to grow up in such an amazing family. And I really wanted to showcase that to the world. I knew from a very early age that what I had at home was special. I had two loving parents. I had a very safe home. And I was always taught to just be myself and just go out there and do whatever I wanted. And it kind of conflicted with this narrative that people always pushed on me of, oh, you're the poor, oppressed Muslim girl. Like, does your dad force you to wear this? And anyone who meets my dad, like, they'll know that that question is just hilarious. So I grew up being like, why do people like misunderstand me so much? Why do they think that, you know, I'm not, like, why are they so surprised that I'm so confident, outgoing, you know, and I have a lot of freedom and I do whatever I want, kind of thing. I wear what I want, I do what I want. So I really wanted to showcase that on TV. And my family was so into it. Like, they were really into it, which I'm really grateful for, because, you know, to let cameras into your home is a very personal thing. You always have mics on you, everything's being recorded, and it's a bit scary working with the media sometimes, because you don't know where they're going with this. And I think the first show I did, I didn't think I had any idea what I was getting myself into. At the time, I didn't realize how tricky the media could be. But I felt very lucky that I had a great producer. I was with the ABC. I was well taken care of. Everything that was shown about my life was accurate. Nothing was played up or played down. It was really good. And so it was an opportunity for me to show my Australian identity, coming from a culturally diverse background, and how my Australian identity is made up of being multicultural in essence. And I really wanted to dispel the myths of these negative stereotypes of how Australian Muslim women were oppressed and restricted and unhappy, because I wasn't any of that. So yeah, the cameras captured my life, and I did it for the purpose of showing the beauty of my religion, and it was in essence doing dawah, which is educating others on what Islam is and what, you know, Australian Muslims actually look like. Like, we eat food like in the table with our family, just like everyone else, kind of thing. And when that aired, I got stopped on the street so many times, and it inspired so many interesting conversations. And I realized the more open I was, the more comfortable people were to ask me questions. And I think that's really the most important thing about dialogue, right? You need to be open so that people can ask you questions, and you need to be prepared to deal with those questions as well. Over the years, I became more involved in my community and more experiences. I said yes to everything, even though I wasn't really prepared for it. I was always up for challenging myself. You only develop and get better when you do challenge yourself. Otherwise, you'll never take the next step thinking you're not ready. Because I could have been like, oh, I'm not going to go on TV to show my religion because I don't think I know everything about my religion. I was just like, I'm just going to do it anyway. You know what I mean? So even if you're not sure or you're not ready, if you're good enough or if you know enough to do something, you have to just go for it. Because failure and making mistakes is not a bad thing. I don't think I made any mistakes, which no one is more surprised about than I am. Like the fact that I didn't make like this huge mistake on national television genuinely surprises me. Thankfully I didn't, but I was holding like, you know, I never held myself back out of fear of making mistakes. I knew I was going to make mistakes. And if I did make a mistake, it's okay, because I'll learn from it and I'll get even better, right? For the next time. So for me, I'm always trying to tell people you need to fail. Like in order to be successful, you have to be willing to fail. And you know what? Failure is a lot of the time you're so anxious about failing, but you don't actually fail. Like if you're really good at what you do and you work hard, it's quite easy. Do you know what I mean? So I think a lot of us have this fear of I'm not good enough, I don't know enough, and we don't have people guiding us sometimes. It really helps to guide. So as of this year, I formalized being a mentor, which has been so amazing because I'm able to teach people the things that I wish someone told me when I was younger. And that's very rewarding. It makes you feel like you're making a difference. The video also showcased AMUST, which is Australasian Muslim Times. I don't know if you can see this. So my grandfather is actually on the front page, and he won the Order of Australia medal. I come from an amazing family that do advocacy, that work in the community. So I was kind of born into this whole community space, and a lot of my identity is based on my grandfather and my father and my mother and the incredible work that they have sort of already done. They were very supportive of me, never said no to anything, any wild, crazy thing I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I'm the managing editor for AMUST. My father and grandfather sort of developed it, and I'm sort of taking it on board. AMUST was created to make sure that all the good work that's happening in the community was being shared to inspire others, to reclaim the narrative of how Muslims were being talked about, especially for young people to see that there are so many role models and achievers out there so that you feel inspired. In my day, there wasn't really a Muslim woman wearing the hijab working in the corporate world, for example. Like I had no one really to look up to or to contact if I needed advice, or if I needed to be like, how do you ask your employers where to pray? Like it's a bit awkward. In that time, it was very different. Now you have so many role models. You have so many people in the media, in politics, Muslims there that you can sort of look up to, get advice from, and things like that. So the whole point of AMUST is to sort of connect and say, all right, so if you Google, like if people do uni assignments or school assignments and they Google and they see, you know, people in whatever field, law, politics, fashion, cooking, Muslims are sort of thriving all over the joint, right? So that's great to have a platform to raise voices and to sort of connect people, essentially, and to educate people on this different success and all the, even young people who are doing amazing work as well. You know, AMUST uses Facebook and Instagram. We engage with the entire community of all ages and cultural backgrounds. I think as a couple of years ago, we decided to go a lot more interfaith. We were getting a lot of interest from people who weren't Muslim, but they wanted kind of to find out what was Islam all about and what was the Muslim community all about. So we started accepting interfaith writers and just basically saying yes to pretty much anyone who wanted to submit. AMUST is very diverse when it comes to the Muslim community. So we have people from the conservative end, from the liberal end, from whether they're Shia or Sunni, whether they different political groups and things like that. Because for us, it's not about one monolithic sort of view of Muslims. Like, Muslim community is so diverse, and we want to represent that. And you know, we do get a bit of heat where people are like, why are you supporting that group? Why are you promoting that group? But from my perspective, if they are someone in the community or they identify themselves as Muslim, we want to know about them. And if they're doing something good, or if they're highlighting an important issue, we're gonna promote that. So we're all about diversity in AMUST. AMUST
It's 7 o'clock.
Oh yeah, that's my 7 o'clock note. AMUST in the past 6 years has made a huge impact in the community. We're very well known and respected amongst the Muslim community, interfaith community, police, government, and we do feel a socially responsible to promote positive stories and shed light on important issues. So there's definitely, there was definitely a gap, and we sort of like filling that essentially. It's really important for young people to feel comfortable submitting their stories and ideas. So we encourage people to write for AMUST. You can submit a story. Yes, you watching right now, amust.com.au/register. Anyone can be a writer for us. All you got to do is register yourself and submit something. It goes through an editing process, and we publish it essentially. So we're very welcoming, and anyone can write, no matter how old you are, and no matter whatever you want to talk about. In my 15 years in the community, paving the way has never been easy. You know, being a young woman, a young Muslim woman, it's not easy, whether you're in the Muslim community or whether you're out in the general multicultural community. It took me a huge balancing act to figure out my identity. You know, my cultural background, my Australian identity, and my religion, and trying to find that balance in between, that, because I just didn't feel like I was one or the other in a lot of ways. So it was a mix, and trying to find where I fit into that was really difficult. It was really difficult because people tell you you're not religious enough, or you're too religious, or you don't need to wear that, or you should wear this, or you should do this and that. And for me, I'm very lucky that I came from a family that were kind of like, just do whatever you want, and you got to figure it out yourself. And so even though it was sort of like a difficult sort of way to navigate, it sort of really affirmed who I was. And so I developed this really strong sense of confidence because I knew what I was doing. So anyone who wanted to challenge me couldn't, essentially, because I responded in a very confident way. And so although they had questions, it wasn't enough to make me really question, okay, who am I? Am I not Australian enough? Like, do I need to take this off? So those sort of things I never really struggled with. And that's something that came from having a sense of knowing who I was and my identity. When it comes to media literacy, like, I had no idea how to engage with the media. And I saw people get taken down by the media, the mainstream media, where they'll interview a Muslim and the Muslim person has said something, and it gets taken out of context. And the whole media destroys them, as we've seen with Yasmin Abdul-Majid and things like that. So I'm really grateful that that didn't happen to me. It could have, it absolutely could have, because I was not media trained. Yeah, now I think I've had a little bit of training, but I should probably get trained more. But media training is very important, and having an understanding of what your rights are when you're getting interviewed by the media is really, really, really important. As someone who works in ethnic media, it's really funny because people are very anti-media in the Muslim community. So they're very hesitant. So I usually have to say, don't worry, even though we're media, we're like the good media. We're not going to publish anything you're not comfortable with and things like that, you know. And, you know, watching, when I talk about all the things I've done in the past 15 years, there's so many times where I feel like I haven't done enough where I could have. you know, or I haven't fulfilled my potential. But I look at that as an opportunity to grow and to challenge myself. You know, I have a lot of dreams and goals that I want to achieve. You know, as a 31-year-old, you know, I think something happens to you when you turn 30. You really start to be like, okay, what have I achieved? What do I want to do? And there's, I think for someone like me, who's been given a lot of privilege, and I'm very well aware of my privilege. And I think that is very important, because if you're not acting in the service of others by identifying the privileges that you have, whether it's you're coming from a safe home, you have enough money to live, you have a great education, all of these are really, you're physically healthy and able, you know, all of these are privileges that need to be acknowledged. And for those people who don't have privileges, you have to kind of help them up and give them space to sort of to speak as well. I think that's really important. So a lot of what I do is acting in the service of others. And I think that a lot of my success comes from that. If you help other people, you just naturally become amazing at what you do. Because when you have that sincere intentions, it just works. People help you, you help them. I'm currently finishing my 4th degree, a second master's in Islamic studies, and I'm looking at how Muslims can use social media from an Islamic perspective. So we have a lot of Muslims who use social media, and I essentially am looking at what lessons can we learn from our religion to ensure that people can use platforms in the right way, the safe way, and the most ethical way. And yeah, it's a bit exciting. It's a bit nerve-wracking because no one's done this before properly, and it's very well needed. There's a lot of issues that are not being addressed. I'm hoping that once it's done, I can develop a teaching program and create content online to teach what I have studied by the will of God. Yeah, so these days, I think that anyone can be a storyteller. Anyone can just create an account and work on their content regularly. And I've supported a lot of my friends who have done that. And it does take confidence. It takes knowing how to deal with the haters and knowing how to grow your platform and just working at it and really, you know, dedicating yourself to it. I think anyone can really become an influencer if you want to be. It's a dangerous game, dangerous fire. Anyway, I've talked a lot, but I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really excited to listen to the rest of the speakers. So thank you, and back to you, Gulhan.
What can I say, Mobinah? So much of what you say resonates with me, and especially your story and experiences about how you're sort of viewed as a woman wearing hijab, and how it completely contradicts the person that you actually are. Incredibly relatable. And I also must say, Australasian Muslim Times newspaper is completely inclusive. I've seen views that sometimes, you know, Muslims, there's an entire spectrum of Muslim. So, and as long as you identify as Muslim, you're a Muslim, you're accepted as a Muslim. And I really respect that Australasian Muslim Times does take a very inclusive view in promoting the whole broad spectrum of views. And I think it all comes down to the respect factor. Now, we'll move on to our next speaker. Thank you so much for that, Mobinah. Our next speaker is MK. Our next speaker, his name is Mohammed Osman, who's also known as MK. He's just published an anthology of poetry called Words, which is available on Amazon. And he's also the co-host of the Imbalanced podcast, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, and a whole range of other platforms, and has 64 episodes. We'll just play the introductory video to that and welcome MK.
I can't hear myself.
Oh, you can't hear nothing. You know, we actually need to start using more of these, to be honest. What do you reckon?
Play bucket as well.
I know. Yeah, hey, actually, you know what? I might come with you.
So MK. It began with banter, basically. Burhan and I used to, you know, see each other every now and then, but whenever we spoke, it was just very long and different conversations, and it was very interesting how different our opinions were to each other, you know. And you know, we discussed like, you know, what if this is something that we could do and share with everyone, you know, and
Definitely.
you know, he came up with the podcast. He's like, we should do a podcast. All we did was hit record on the laptop and just had a normal conversation, and that's how it really began.
You can tell
know?
the quality was bad.
Yeah, it was terrible.
But I already gave you the options earlier. Like we're gonna do,
It wasn't,
you know, when I
yeah.
said like fears in relationships.
Yeah.
Right. I was actually gonna talk about love marriage versus arranged marriage.
Oh.
Right.
It's like hobby wise, it's awesome. You know, like we get to banter for an hour and a bit. Talk
It's
about
something you look forward to.
Yeah, talk about, you know, things like, to be honest, like it's actually good for the mind as well. Like we get to discuss topics that are very important in our lives.
Welcome to episode 58.
58?
58, I know.
Damn.
I know. You know what's funny? Every week we're shocked, like, 50, 50 something. Like, we're not here every week.
Yeah.
But it's,
And you know what? That's 50 episodes more than the average life of a lot of podcasts. Because apparently, a lot of podcasts don't make it past the 8th episode.
7, actually.
Where do you find your stuff?
Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Anchor, Spreaker, Google Play, Stitcher. Literally
Your page,
everywhere.
my page, his
our,
page.
Our Instagram at the Imbalanced Pod. That's what the page is, you know. And when the YouTube comes out, we'll figure that name out too. So we'll put it out.
Thank you so much, Gulhan, and thank you everyone for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm very excited to be here. And I don't feel like I can say anything after the video that Dan put together. So thank you for that one. So yes, guys, my name is Mohammed, aka MK. That's what everyone knows me as. Everyone probably gets confused as to why it's Mohammed Osman and then it's MK. The story behind that is my dad's name is actually Khalid, or Khalid as we would say in English. And back where I'm from in Sudan, we don't refer to each other by surnames. It's more by your father's name. So it kind of stuck like that as I grew up. I come originally from Sudan. For those who don't know what that is, that's in Northeast Africa. Been in Australia for about 18 years now. I came here when I was 12, and this is actually my 5th country living here. So I was born in Sudan. I lived in Syria. I lived in Ghana. I lived in Egypt. So I had a bit of a run around as a kid. I think it helped a lot in developing me as the man I am today. I was always put in situations or having to go to a different country and make new friends and assimilate and have to learn things all over again. So I think that did a lot for the kind of things I do now. Very challenging, you know, when you're a little kid, you know, when you have to have that conversation with your parents, like, oh, we're moving again. And just like the movies, really, you know, we're moving again. And, you know, I hated it as a kid, but I really do. I think I'm very lucky, and I'm very grateful that I actually got to experience that kind of thing. I think that helped me a lot in understanding that, you know, life's not going to be easy. You know, from a very young age, I think I discovered that, and that not everything is going to be the way you want it, you know, so you kind of have to break, you know, through a lot of barriers to get to what you want and do what you want. And that helped a lot in my way of doing things, basically. I became someone who like craves the challenge, craves the idea that, you know, there's no limitation to what I can do or how far I can take things or, you know, what I can experience. And I discovered something very important that I didn't discover until I started doing everything that I really wanted to do, was that you learn so many things along the way that you don't know when they're going to be important, you know, or when you will use them, at what stage of your life. So, I always, you know, I've been working since a very young age. You know, I've always had an idea for business and doing these kinds of things. I started my first business when I was 11, I guess, you know. I was selling icicles when I didn't have to be honest, but it was something that I wanted to do. So I've always kind of had that drive to do more and push for more. I studied marketing in uni. I ran a business for 2 years. It was a cafe in Essendon. We actually had the pleasure of working with Dan and Kauthar at the time as well, for a short film that Kauthar produced. So that was always very exciting. That was very exciting to do. I am a writer. I've been writing for about 8 years now. And I started writing for me, really. I started writing for the things that I experience, things that I feel, the experiences that I have with people, the things that I've seen throughout my life. And I've been someone who a lot of people confide in or come to, for advice or just to have a chat. So that kind of always played on my mind, that I have all these things in my head and I do have to let it out somehow. So writing became my outlet. And then as soon as I started writing, I realized something that as a, not to put limitations, but as a Muslim man or an African man, there was always this stigma that guys can't be a certain way when they express how they feel, or, you can't write these kind of things or do this kind of things. So again, knowing myself, I'm like, well, I'm going to do this. So I started doing it, I started writing a lot. And initially it was scary to be able to actually show people what I wrote or why these things are like, what goes on in my head, for example, what kind of stories that I have. But then something happened when I started sharing it. Then I realized that, just like Mobinah said earlier, that you're afraid of so many things before you do them. But then as soon as you do them, nothing even happens. Like, it's not actually as scary as you build it to be in your head. So I started sharing on my Instagram page, and I realized that so many people would message me and be like, oh, that's so relatable. Like, I feel like this too, and I think like this too. And that kind of opened the door for me to talk to more people and build like a bigger network and, meet people across the way. So I've been writing for about 8 years now. I just published my first book, which is a collection of poetry, basically. And it's short little, pieces of my personal experiences, but with a mix of other people, stories and experiences. Here's the artwork. I just got it done. So it's done really well so far, actually. I'm very overwhelmed. I'm been about, 6-7 weeks now, and I've just sold over 150 copies of it. So it's been really, really cool. The podcast, as you can see behind me, I've been doing it for just under 2 years now, 64 episodes. We just crossed over 15,000 downloads. So that was another thing too. Basically, like the video, we literally just hit record on our laptop. It was another thing that, we did feel like there was a bit of underrepresentation, and like there wasn't many, people, who are Muslim or who are African who are doing these kinds of things. I think a lot of it is partly from some of our upbringing that, success is associated with only certain things in life, like you have to be a doctor or, an engineer or whatever the case may be. So when you do things like that, it's kind of like your parents don't hate it, but they don't see why you want to do it type thing. So, and that kind of plays with a lot of people, So for us, it was a good opportunity to actually be able to bring that out there. And we talk about so many different things. We just talk, literally, we hit that microphone and we start talking about, relationships, friendships, work, business, goals, drama, whatever the case may be. Really, people message us for things to talk about for them. So it's been really, really, really good in the sense that we built so many connections, and, it creates opportunities like this for me to come here and speak to people, about what I do and how much I do enjoy doing it. So I think a lot of the times the only limitations we put really is on ourselves. Like, we don't, you don't know until you try it. As cliche as it sounds, it's actually the truth, So you actually want to just get yourself out there, like when we get overwhelmed with the technicalities and, when I started writing a book, I'm self-published, so I had to learn how to do everything. Like the writing was there, but I had to learn how to compile it, and I had to learn how to find who's going to print it and how I'm going to promote it. And again, with the podcast, I didn't know how you use a microphone or how you edit sound or how, but I realized that like literally everything you need, someone has already done it, someone knows how to do it, or there's a bunch of things on the internet that you can actually find, to actually help you. So I've learned how to edit sound, and I've in the process I've learned how to edit videos just for my YouTube channel. With the book, again, all self-taught, but just because I do put myself out there, So I think really my message is to actually just understand that everything is really possible. Like nothing can really actually stop you from doing something if you wholeheartedly want to do it, and you don't understand what kind of opportunities or what kind of doors it opens for you. Until you actually start doing that kind of thing. And, the funny contrast of it is I work in insurance, so it has nothing to do with, what I actually do in my spare time. But I feel like my spare time is so much more fun and exciting and entertaining than my, my normal day job. And in the process, I managed to help a few people, start their own podcast. And I'm currently helping someone compile their book now, you know, even though I've just done one, but like, you know, I'm giving them whatever I know. So share your knowledge as well. It's really good. You don't know what you can teach and who can teach you what, and there's always room for that growth and improvement, and you know, just learning new things really. But not to take up too much time from everybody. I'll be looking forward to the questions as well. Please, like, whatever you need to know, whatever I can actually help you with, feel free to, you know, I can leave my details afterwards. You can contact me. I'm happy to help. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that, MK. What an absolute inspiration you are to young people everywhere. And congratulations on the publication of your latest poetry book on words. I can see that, you know, you've got a real story of resilience. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, life's not easy. And I think we need to sort of say that more, especially to young people. I know in many senses, social media can make that look like it's just them, you know, that might be suffering or going through something, but life isn't easy. There's, you know, there's obstacles, there's challenges, you know, and I think for you to mention that everything is possible as soon as you take a step, that also sort of encourages people to begin, just see how it goes. We would definitely love to have you visit us at Siraat College once this pandemic is over, to maybe even help out some of our students and St Monica's College students in developing content on podcast. So thank you so much for your presentation today, and thank you for being here. Next up, we have Abdi. Give me 1 second. Abdi Aiden. Now, with our Abdi Aiden, he's an author as well. We've got a few authors with us today, and he's the author of the memoir Shining, a story of a lucky man, and he speaks regularly to schools and other audiences about his own journey. I hope he can share some of his journey today, another pretty remarkable journey he has. He's appeared in media and television, including SBS, Go Back to Where You Came From. If you've watched that, you'd be familiar with Abdi's work. He runs arts events, and he's also a filmmaker, using social media creatively as a platform for communication and for connection. We'll just screen Abdi's video, and thanks for being with us, Abdi. One moment.
My name is Abdi. I'm born in Somalia, and I came to Australia 21 years ago. I got my citizenship. But also when my mom came, I felt there's nowhere, you know, there's no place to go back, and this is home. I like people to hear my story and to learn something in my story, and not judging people. And also, you know, people to hear other people, what they go through. But anyway, I never talked about details. Life is good, you know, and my 3 children and my wife, and Melbourne is a great place to live. Because it's called Open Mic Art of North, cultural diversity. I thought that, you know, it would be great upcoming artists to come and talk or express yourself. Then other people will wear it. So it's kind of respecting and doing the right thing. So I'm going to try what it looks like. So wearing a mask. So this is my favorite one.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was a nice introduction. Can everyone hear me? Everyone's good? I am very lucky to be here today, and lucky to be here today. Sorry, I just can't hear someone talking, but lucky to be here today. I am a youth worker, a public speaker, and I also love films. I like to make films, anything to do with storytelling, and I love it. And tonight I will share with you how do I promote my work and communicate with people. The way I do it is, first, you just have to be genuine person. So if you want other people to come on board, you just have to be genuine and someone who people respect, because you can respect people and they respect you back. So generally, I promote things like, Facebook. I got 2 Facebooks. I also have Instagram and I got Twitter, but I also got word to mouth where people like my friends tonight in the meeting. So I use all the platforms to be able to promote my work. I was born in Somalia. I came to Australia as a teenager with no family. So I had to learn things by myself to be able to learn and learn and learn. If you don't try, you never learn. So I keep trying. And when I do things, I actually don't want anything back. I always try to give more than, if I get it back 10%, that would be great. So I also always try to communicate with people very clearly. And also, it helps me to be able to, back to how to promote my work. Sometimes if I release a book, I got 2 books. If I release a book, I try to promote social media before I even release to the shops. It goes to the shops. I'm a existing publisher who come from a publisher company, but also I published my second book. But my 3rd book, I'm thinking, I'm waiting to be able to publish through another publisher. So I'm one of the, best-selling Australian books, which is a lot of schools are reading. If the students, some of you might have the library, or some of them also do the year 9 or year 10, they might be reading. So when I go to outside Victoria, I find that most of the students are reading my book. In Victoria, 80%, but the other states, they're reading as their kind of curriculum, or not curriculum, but it's more like chosen as a refugee story, because I came to Australia as a refugee and I had to learn, English. I didn't know English, how to speak when I came to Australia. So learn English language, learn how to do media. My first media I did was quite a long time ago. It was 1996. I did Today Tonight, something that I don't promote that also. But I've done other television programs, SBS, Channel 10, interviewed at Channel 7, and also done a lot of things through a lot of social media and newspapers. So I've done newspapers for 10, 15 years, way before I even tried to go back to where you came from. So I always try to promote my work through social media, and I don't concentrate about negative stuff. I concentrate about the positive. Negative sometimes can be people are not supporting. I see it. I never really had one bad comment. I had one bad comment and that's about it. And sometimes when you have a bad comment, it means, bad publicity, they say good publicity, although I don't think it's publicity. So I try to be genuine and I tell stories. I go around schools and I try to be honest as much as I can about myself. I've never changed my name. I didn't change my name to, instead when I become a publisher, write my books, and I do a lot of other stuff, I never changed my name. And the reason I didn't do that is because once you change your name to something else, like if you change your Australian name, it means, I thought to myself, it will always come back to me and say, well, when I get older, it will be harder. So if I can't be successful without my name, then it will be, I'm not interested. So my success also is being just myself. And when you look after yourself, you're going to look after others. So if I always try to start something, I start from scratch. What I'll do is, if I want to write a book, I'll ask questions, I'll call people and I'll tell them. And every time they talk to me, I learn about the way they want me to write or the way they want me to do. And as MK said before, we didn't have anyone to teach us how to do it. Now I'm actually a publisher. I can help people to write their stories and be honest with them and tell them what sells, if you want to sell it. For me, is my first book, I was thinking, if I sell 100 copies, I'm happy because I wrote a book and I'm promoting humanity, Somali people. I was born in Somalia, of course, Australian people, other people, and generally the way I see myself is what I look like. Being a minority person, I don't see myself minority. People think that, but I'm not. I am as good as everyone else. And I like to think like that. So my advice is always be yourself. If you're yourself and you're genuine, guess what? Things will come to you. If you're not genuine, it's a really hard, you can survive. Even your own communities, it's very hard to be. So be genuine. Don't be scared of what people think. Like we were talking about before, someone mentioned it that, you know, our community might say, be a doctor and a lawyer and things like that. But I'm telling you, I always think it's a joke, but it's not a joke. It's a true story that our community, Somali community, you have to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or disgrace to the family. You don't have to be disgraced to the family. I remember saying to my family, I want to be an author and a youth worker. I remember they saying, what's that? You know, you should be a doctor and lawyer. And I remember saying, I can't even speak English. How can I be a lawyer? I mean, now I can, but how can I be a lawyer? And I didn't tell them that, of course, because I didn't want to disappoint my family. But always be yourself, and whatever you do it well. Can you imagine be a doctor or lawyer? Nothing wrong with that, but then you don't have the way you engage people. You don't have how to be genuine. You don't know how to talk to people. So I'm telling you, if you talk to people and you respect people, I'm telling you, what happens is people will come to you and will say to you, this is what happened. I'm always, if you're a young person, if you're adult, if you're older, I'll treat you the same. Of course, it's not the same if you're man and women and that, but I'll treat you as respect. I'll look in the eye and respect you and tell you the same thing if you ask me. And that's some of the thing I become successful. Successful for me is looking after myself, and then I look after my family, and then the community. And that's how I see it. I won't talk too much. You can ask me a lot of things if I forget something, and I can see some of the comments. Thank you very much for sending me the comments, and I appreciate it. I'll leave it here and I'll give it to Gulhan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abdi, for your very, very interesting presentation. There are so many relatable aspects to what you're talking about, especially around changing of name and just being comfortable with your identity. And I think going back to what Mobinah was saying earlier, I think something happens when you hit 30 and you just, you know, in the past you can have these ideas that, oh, you know, people can't pronounce it, or, you know, you try to sort of, you know, media can sometimes define your place in the world or attempt to define your place, and it's easy to buy into that as a young person. But as you age, you start to really feel comfortable with who you are and what you represent. And I feel like the name factor is a very, it's a very important thing to just be comfortable with who you are. And also what you said later on around whatever you do, do it well. You know, it's not about hierarchy or position. It's whatever you do it with passion and do it well. Don't do it half-heartedly. Now, our last speaker for today is Kauthar. Oh, so much to say about Kauthar. Now, Kauthar is an award-winning film writer, director, producer, and has received Screen Australia funding for developing her comedy series, Selma and the City. She is the host. She has a host of other screen projects also in development. Kauthar is the host of her own talk show at the moment, Kickback with Kauth on IGTV. Now we'll be introducing Kauthar's video, followed by Kauthar's presentation.
welcome to Kickback with Kauth. We're really excited to have you here.
There are a lot of similarities between how we follow our faith when it comes to wearing what we do.
If something doesn't sit well with you, or if you hear someone saying something and it's actually really far from the truth, open your mouth about it.
So it was so ironic because here we were launching this report and this had happened the night before, 100 meters away.
Well, I think there's no better way to get out of your comfort zone than to do that.
Great learning experience for me as well, because I never thought I would shoot a short film with a GoPro.
Now if I have to do a show, I walk up the stairs to the room above the garage, turn on the camera, which is quite cool, aside from the fact that you can't hear any laughs. LOL in the comment section is not the same. You know, the smiley, the teary face eyes, like it's not the same, you know what I mean?
She said, look, we were really impressed with what you did for the audition, so we actually created a role specifically for you. And I was like,
oh, wow.
And I was like, I think the idea of a confident brown man in his 20s with a bit of swagger who's clearly very talented was extremely threatening to the industry.
I needed to empower other Black Muslim girls and tell them, yeah, you are fly. I mean, come on now.
And all of this is really important in those formation years.
Yeah, we're real people and we do experience these real feelings, and we go through things just like everybody else. So
you've got enough tea for the both of us, so it's all right.
Inshallah, 2021.
Hey, assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you, Dan, for putting together that little trailer from all the kickbacks I've done so far. I think we needed something light after seeing my really intense, dramatic director's show reel. So thanks so much for that. And I just want to acknowledge as well, one of the guests I had at the kickback is here, Karina, and I think John is also in the room. So thanks so much, guys, for joining me here today. Gulhan mentioned to me that, you know, to start with a story, and I was thinking about this for a few weeks, and I was like, what story do I actually want to share that I think I can share here today and not keep it for the films I want to make down the line. So I had to like sit down, go through my life and be like, okay, this one, I'm going to make a movie about that. That one, I'm not sure if I want to talk about that part of my life. But there's one story I thought which was relevant. It kind of, it ties to the reason why I guess I'm pursuing films as one of my main passionate careers. So I was born in Kenya, and I grew up in a small, tiny little town on the slopes of Mount Kenya called Meru. And Meru was, you would know everyone on the street and everyone knows you. It was one of those places. And you didn't really have much with regards to entertainment things. I mean, the only thing you could do on the weekends was drive a few kilometers down the road and you're in the safari and you can do a game drive or go camping. So, but besides that, we didn't have what kids here have, you know, whether it's like play centers or cinemas. Yeah, it was a very restricted kind of environment. Not a bad thing, but it was just different to what we have available here. And I remember one thing that we would do traditionally as a family is we were obsessed with Bollywood films. And if you wanted to watch a Bollywood film, you'd have to drive 4 hours into the main city to watch a movie. And so occasionally we would go down and, you know, it would be something we would do as part of the trip that we were taking to the main city. But I remember this one particular movie came out and my dad came home from work and he was like, all right, we're going to Nairobi, pack your bags. And we're like, okay, what's going on? And then he was like, there's a movie called Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, it's coming out and it's got Shah Rukh Khan in it and we're going. So get ready and like, let's go. So I remember we left the town at about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And we drove, it was me, my mum, my dad, and my mum's brother, my uncle, 4 of us. Off we went, 4 hours down the road, risking our life, because the other thing with driving from Meru to Nairobi is it's not like your freeway that you have here. You're going through like mountains and hills, and you're passing through towns, and at night it can get really dangerous. A lot of people, you know, your cars could get hijacked. Like there'd be people dressing up as cops that'd stop your car, and you know, like it was just crazy. So imagine like putting in all that effort to watch Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. So I think unconsciously, like that love for cinema, and I guess Bollywood to an extent, was built through you know, the efforts we put to watch it and enjoy it, and you know, have that time as a family. And so cut to a few years down the line, I'm not in Meru anymore, I'm in Melbourne now. And I made my very first short film, which after making, it was sitting in my hard drive for a good couple of months because I didn't know what to do with it afterwards. And I remember one of my friends watched it and she said, you have to submit it to festivals. Like, what are you doing? And I thought, okay, let me just give it a try. And so I went through a bunch of festivals, whatever was open at that time, I just submitted. And then I got a call saying that my film was shortlisted for the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne, which was really random because I never expected that to happen. I mean, the film was about a Muslim woman's experience with Islamophobia, and it's not Bollywood at all. And so I was invited to the awards night, and it was really strange and surreal because the people who made that film, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, including some of the lead actors, were present and they were sitting right in front of me. And I remember, like, my dad was next to me, and like, it was such a surreal moment, like having that experience of like just being in a room full of people that you kind of had grown up watching or you sort of looked up to. And yeah, and so I thought about, you know, this question I get asked a lot, like, why do you choose filmmaking? Why are you so passionate about it? And the truth is, like, I think to an extent, it's sort of, I think beyond passion, it's kind of like just a love for it. Funnily, like, I keep learning more and more about my parents, and one thing I learned as well, so my dad, he started working when he was really young, and one of the businesses he ran in that small little town that I talked about was he had a little movie theater, and he would like get not DVDs, but like cassettes and stuff of other films. He loved Will Smith, so he would like have screenings of his own in a little shop. He just put like plastic chairs and he would have a projector onto a wall, and that was his cinema. So I think in some way, like, I've just had this like love and passion for it. And one way to kind of like differentiate what is just an interest and what is a passion is, if you're gonna pay money to do it, then that's passion. But if you're gonna do it for free, then that's probably interest. So if you're gonna invest more than your time and every energy, and if you're gonna invest a lot of your money as well, then that could possibly be a passion. So that's one way that I think about what are the things that I'm passionate about and what are the things that just interest me. And so now what happened in between that drive to watch Kuch Kuch Hota Hai and receiving my award with people who made that film was what I like to call life. And life is something that's going to continuously happening because, you know, even though we have mediums that are accessible, whether it's smartphones or social media, what you actually need is content. How are you going to create content? And the only way to do that is to live life fully and wholeheartedly, like live every experience. And the other thing I would say as well is I wanted to pursue film straight after high school, but it wasn't a career that was necessarily like encouraged because, you know, like your parents, especially when you're coming from a different country, they're concerned about your success and financial well-being, and you know, films wasn't something that was seen as that in our community. And so, like, I remember, sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. Dan, do you want to remind me, what was I saying?
Sorry, you were talking about the story that people have rather than just the tools.
Yeah.
The content.
Yes, the content. So, sorry, I just went blank. So yeah, I think it's really important to, oh yeah, so this is what I wanted to say, sorry. I remember now. So basically, I wanted to pursue filmmaking right after high school, but it wasn't something that was encouraged. And I remember at that time I was feeling really bad about it. And now in hindsight, when I look back, I realized that, you know, that was probably the best thing that happened to me, because I went off and did other things and grew as a person. I became more confident in my perspective, because storytelling is about perspective. And you only get that through, I guess, living life and having those experiences. But one thing that I realized as well is, I think we get too caught up in the hype, you know, whether it's social media or the film industry or whatever it may be. So what I would say is as well, like, don't rush that process. Just allow things to happen organically, and just take it one step at a time. And while you're doing it, you always got to check your intentions as well, because social media or the film industry or anything in general can, I guess, you can get caught up in all the things that give you that buzz feeling inside. But you just gotta, like, step back and remind yourself, why is it that I'm doing this? Why am I telling this story? What's the purpose? How is this benefiting me? How is it benefiting my community? You know, what's the greater impact that it's going to have as a society? So yeah, those are the couple of things that I would say. And I guess we can talk more once you have the questions.
Thank you so much, Kauthar, for that amazing story and your presentation. Sometimes, and I think you probably experience it as writers as well, MK and Brother Abdi. Sometimes you become the vessel for the story. You know, that story where you actually came full circle, meeting the people that were in the movie that you watched. And you know, some people call it ilham, you know, inspiration. You know, you become the vessel, and you and that story is told. And your experience now, you know, we can learn from it as well. The things that you mentioned about basically having life experiences to be able to develop content is also very, very important. Now, what an amazing lineup of speakers we have today. So if I can get all our guests, all the attendees, participants, to maybe in the chat box write a sentence or two about your greatest takeaway from today before we move on to a quick Q&A. We've got some questions that have come through. Did you want me to give everyone a minute or two if they want to go and freshen up, grab a, you know, maybe a glass of water? Give everyone a minute or two, and then we'll move on to Q&A, inshallah. Okay. No problem. So some of the comments that we're receiving, there, geez, so many people already that have attended. No, Brother Abdi and Kauthar. Brother Abdi, you've got a few fans here that have known you for 10 years. Just seeing from the chat box. Okay.
More than 10 years.
Oh,
more than 10 years.
Wonderful. Okay, so if everyone's okay to go ahead with questions, we might just kick off with some of the questions that have come through. Feeling inspired, only limitations. Let me see, sorry. Thank you so much for all the amazing speakers. Be authentic, be genuine, be you, and follow what you are passionate about, not what is expected of you. Thank you to all our speakers. Your passion and diversity was inspiring. Keep up the great work. We've actually got a quarter of our guests, over a quarter of our participants today are actually students. So it's been fantastic having a range of ages and ethnicities and you know, even a variety of religions represented today. So I think that was very, very important to have that diversity here. Was really inspired and moved by Kauth. I was too. How fantastic was Kauthar's speech. And all our panelists, I really, really am inspired by your ability to engage with your audience, and also your messages were very, very important. Such a diverse range of perspectives, and all seem to reiterate the fact that anything is possible. Very inspiring to listen to you all. Okay, we've got a question here for MK. While you aim for open and honest discussions in your podcast, some of your content is designed for more mature audiences. Do you have concerns about reaching or not reaching the right audience? MK, I'll just spotlight you.
Thank you. I actually get this question quite a lot. I just got it yesterday with someone that I helped start their podcast. It definitely is hard being able to, you know, navigate through that kind of thing. But I learned something very early on that, and this is not like, you know, to say just say whatever, but I learned something very honest that you can't please everybody. Like there's always going to be something that is not going to sit right with someone, you know, and then you got to figure out that, you know, how you can deliver your message, I guess, in the most respectful way, you know, without having to, you know, come off as attacky, or, you know, you're hurting someone's feeling or not being considerate, because it is a public platform, and at the end of the day, like, we have a responsibility for the message that we share, you know. So I do watch out. We try to be as respectful as possible to, you know, to our listeners. We do have, you know, things like stats that help us understand, you know, who actually listens to us, what age groups listen to us, who's interested in what topic, and all these things kind of come through. So that kind of gives you a broader idea as to, you know, what kind of content to produce and what kind of things to focus on. I hope that answers it.
Fantastic. We've got a question here from Brother Albert Fatalay. What is the ideal person you would like to be, and how do you aim to get there?
Is this for me as well?
Yeah, he's just said it open to any of the presenters. So you're welcome to answer that.
I guess the ideal person I would like to be, and how I aim to get there. The ideal person I would like to be, I guess, is to me personally, is just to be the best version of myself. You know, in anything and everything I do, like what Abdi said earlier. Like, honestly, I think about it this way. Like, if I'm gonna be, you know, cleaning the streets, for example, you know, I want to be the best person to clean the streets. Like, that's how I, you know, I want to do things, and I just want to be someone who can help people. That's really a really big thing for me, to be able to help. How I plan to get there is just basically through trials. Just keep trying, keep experiencing different things, put myself out there, get myself out of those, like, you know, ugly, comfortable spots that we all get into. And when you tell yourself you can't do it, or you tell yourself what's the point, but then when you have something that you're working towards, it always pushes you. There's always something in the back of your head that I need to get there, and when I get there, I know there's going to be somewhere else that I need to go. So it's just a matter of keeping it going. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for your response. We've got two questions for Sister Mobinah. So the first one we have is, your work putting yourself in the media is not really about creating characters and personas. How do you manage that without feeling too anxious? That's the first question. And then we've got one more from Zainab. How do we reclaim our own narrative and feel comfortable amplifying our voices?
Right. So I think with the first one, it's about being authentic. So yeah, you do have to be very, very real. Because if you try to show yourself out to be the perfect Muslim or the perfect person or whatever, people will sense that, and they'll know that you're lying. Do you know what I mean? And so it was really important to me to be very authentic. And I guess like I never felt, there were times where I felt nervous, but not anxious, because I just sort of thought, I had a very good understanding of who I was from a very young age, who I was, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. I was very comfortable in that, whilst I was navigating like who I wanted to be, and I grow in that sense. But in essence, my beliefs and my core values were very firm. So it was about being very authentic, very real, not being ashamed or embarrassed to say things like I've said dumb things or I've made mistakes and things like that. When I started talking a lot about the mistakes I made, I found that people really respected me and connected with me a lot more. So it's about being really authentic and having core values. So what was the second question?
The second question was from Zainab. I'll just go back to it. How do we reclaim our own narrative and feel comfortable amplifying our voices? Would you say that also, was that included in your answer?
I just have a few things to add with that. Is sort of like, to reclaim your narrative, you need to not let other people speak for you as well. So you need to be able to say, hang on, no, I don't agree with that. Like, that doesn't represent me. I don't like that. So you need to speak up and say, that's not correct. Because what people are going to do is they're going to force a narrative onto you and sort of be like, this is what you believe, this is what you think because of your age, because of your gender and things like that. So you have to be very confident and say, no, like, set your boundaries. So you do have to reclaim your own narrative. And to feel comfortable, man, like, you have to be willing to sit in the discomfort. Like, if you want to reclaim something, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. So you need to find some sort of comfort in the uncomfortability. Like, I love doing rock climbing, for example. And the thing about rock climbing is you have to use these really small pieces on the wall to climb up. It's really uncomfortable. But when you feel confident that you can do it, and I was comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. So I'm climbing up the wall and I'm hurting myself and I'm getting bruised, but I'm sitting in that discomfort because I know that I need to get to the top.
Yeah,
that's my answer.
Fantastic answer. Thank you so much. And good analogy too, very relevant. We've got two for Kauthar. Your Kickback with Kauth show on Instagram is still fairly young. How do you find the show changing? And we've also got a comment from Margaret Kauth. You are so right about needing to have lived and gained experience before you have perspective and experiences that will be meaningful as content. And she's basically thanking you for sharing those experiences.
Thanks so much, Margaret, for your comment. And yeah, I truly stand by what I said with regards to having a lived experience, because I think that's probably the greatest assets we all have, not just as creatives, but in general as humans, right? We share our stories, and these stories come from our lived experiences, or, you know, stories that we hear from our families and our communities. So, you know, yeah. And with regards to the question about the kickback, so to be honest, it wasn't a planned thing. It just kind of happened. And so I put out the same film that won an award at the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne. And no, I'm not related to Beyonce. See, these are the comments that distract me. Can we kick people out now? I'm just joking. So, okay, going back to the question. So with the kickback, it just happened organically. So I put out my film on Instagram. Thanks to MK, actually, I had that chat to him because I wasn't really sure, you know, after doing the festival round, which platform would be the best one to release it on. And it got a really, really good response online. And I thought, you know, I really want to celebrate this moment and I decided to gather a bunch of people who were part of the film, and we literally kicked back and spoke about different things. And so after the first kickback I did, I think a lot of people messaged me and was saying, you know, you should do this more often. So I thought, okay, let's see, you know, who's willing to kick back with me, literally. So I reached out to some of my contacts, and it's really strange. Like people that I haven't spoken to, I don't know in person, also were open to kicking back with me. And for instance, we had Riyad Musa from South Africa. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's got a film on Netflix called Material. He also was in a film called A Walk to Remember about Nelson Mandela, and he worked with Idris Elba. So he's like really out there with regards to his acting career, and he does stand-up comedy as well. So someone like him saying, oh yeah, I'm happy to kick back with you, like that was a big like eye-opener. And so it just goes to show that you just have to try. What's the worst that people are going to say, right? They'll just say no, and then you'll just move on to the next thing or the next person. And I want to come back to also mention, so I received a development funding for a comedy web series. I think I'm a funny person, and but the world doesn't know that yet. And so I needed to in order for me to prove that, I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply for this funding and show people that I'm actually funny and write a comedy and film and make a comedy. And Dan, who's on the panel, was very skeptical about me winning this funding. And to his surprise, we got it. And again, that's the other thing, like you just have to try and see what happens. The worst thing that will happen is people will say no. And so coming back to my kickback and what I see it becoming in future, I don't really have a plan with that, because my social media, it's firstly to share some of my work, but it's also for me to be social. And because I think every single day we're on our meetings, we're working, you know, we're constantly doing stuff that's work related, but we don't have that time to show our lives or just that personal side of us, which I think it's also fine to share depending on what you're comfortable with. And it's something I'm learning to do, because I consider myself a bit of an introvert. So some days I'm like, oh, is this too personal? Am I sharing too much? But then it's just kind of like, you're human and you're whole, and there's different parts of you, and not all parts of you are, you're not just going to be wearing your work hat. On some days you'll have your I'm a foolish person hat, and that's also fine. So just take things a little bit easy, and also enjoy your time on social media and enjoy your time on this earth, really. I'm being so philosophical today.
Thank you so much for that, Kauthar. We've got a couple for Abdi Aiden, and then we've got two for MK. I'm conscious of the time, it's 8:03, so we'll do these two questions and then we'll call it a night. I'll just spotlight Abdi Aiden. So the two questions we've got for you is on your Facebook clips and the clips that we've seen tonight, we see that you've been involved in developing content for like serious content for like the COVID-19 content, and you've also got some lighthearted content as well. So I can see that you've used both. Why and when are both of those important? So the lighthearted and the serious content. And we've got a question here. How do you work with the community to create your content?
Thank you very much. Those clips that I did lockdown, it was something really was very true to myself. I just thought I'll share it playing with my neighbor because of the lockdown. And I said to myself, what can I show people that you can play with your neighbor and without touching them? Means that, you know, the lockdown, I didn't want to get people saying, oh, you know, you're touching the ball and they're touching the ball. So, you know, I was playing with tennis. It started with the tennis. And then once I did that, people were messaging me saying, oh my God, that's teasing me and when people tease you in my culture, it means they like you. So what happens is they tease me, and then I did another one, playing some instrument, not the one you've seen, but even the African drumming, and I've done what with soccer, and I did that, and then people really was asking me, oh, I really like that, and then I like that, and I don't like that, and I was thinking to myself, well, you asking me not to like it or like it, and I realized people are watching, so. And I start doing, more stuff. Like I did cooking, straight 5 days, and people liked it. And I said to myself, instead storytelling, I should have been a cook because I was getting so many response. But I love being a storyteller. So that's one thing that I created to be able to entertain kind of myself, and then it become entertaining. So I started Facebook, and then I end up in Instagram. But the other way I communicate with the community, the other question is communicate or help the community is when I don't know if you remember on the media, when the high-rising Flamingo in North Melbourne, the lockdown, I asked Somali women to help if she needs something. And then the Somali women told her neighbor and another neighbor, then Somali become Eritreans, become Ethiopians, it become Bosnians, and, people who are born here asking me if I can contact them. So I did that, and then I start doing the mask, telling those group, the lockdown that I created a Facebook page. So I start showing them how to wear masks, and then people are calling me and said, can we donate? And I said, look, I don't want to take money. I'm just doing this for myself. If someone asks me something to send them the high rising, I'd rather pay from my pocket. But people were trying to help and said, we can help. So I realized that a lot of people could not do what I was doing, such as telling something funny or something very serious on social media. I realized a lot of people were very conscious. They could not do it. And I thought, it's so sad, but I didn't think it was sad because everyone's different. Not everyone's like me, like to, tell people with the way I'm thinking and the way I tell jokes that are sometimes not even funny, but I think it's funny and things like that. So I just like to tell the stories and experience. So I always positive. So talking to the community, it's really the good thing. You realized you're not Somali, you're not African, you're not Muslim. You just become really genuine Australian person living in Australia, rather than when people know you, they forget what you are. They just know who someone like you're human. So that's one thing I love about sharing my stories to the community and making awareness what I tell them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response, Abdi. I'm just going to highlight now, MK, we've got 2 questions for you. Geez, we're getting quite a few questions now around developing content. So the first one I've got here is from Senna. What advice would you share with someone who is wanting to start their own podcast? Again, it's inspiring to see a brother in a position to do this because there aren't many sharing their stories in this platform the way you are. And if you can also maybe answer the one just above that around, do you see, by Christine, do you see storytelling as a therapeutic process? As a trauma counsellor myself, I find young people who express their experiences through storytelling, poetry, music, film, are able to process and heal and also inspire others and help them to heal. Over to you, Brother MK.
Awesome. Both really great questions. I'll start off with Sana first. I would just really say, to be honest, just like what Kauthar said earlier, content is king, really. All the technicalities of like a podcast and all what microphone to use and what program to use and where to post it, all of that stuff is really easy. It's actually really easy when you start doing it. But it's what you want to say, really, and that's what I would say is focus on. If it's something that you want to do or you want to start doing, think about the kind of message you want to put out. Think of the impact that it will have. Think of if it's going to help people, if it's going to guide people, if it's going to entertain people. It doesn't really matter, but it's very important to know what you want to put out, because a lot of times, we didn't buy microphones for 10 episodes in because we didn't know if we're going to keep doing it or not, and all the, I guess, like those things are kind of like the extras is what generates the good quality. Not to say like don't worry, don't just get it, but obviously you would need it. But the most important part is really the content and the message you're trying to affect, and what you're trying to put out to the world. And that's what for us now it's become that people would literally message us every week and be like, hey, can you talk about this? Or can you talk about that? Because we kind of became their podcast friends, you know, even though some people don't know us, but then they kind of relate now because we answer the questions for them that they, you know, that they have or that they can't ask the people, you know. And for Christine's question, that's also, I do think it is therapeutic for me, especially for, I've always been someone who, you know, I like to think I'm an antisocial extrovert. That's what I like to think of. So I talk to everyone. You know, it's very easy I find it very easy to get along with a lot of people, but I find it very hard to talk about what I'm thinking because I just don't feel like a lot of people can understand me and like, not understand, but relate to me, I guess. So I can take on a lot, but I've always found it hard to actually, you know, let go of some, if you will. So writing especially has helped me a lot because it just became my best friend type thing. And there's something cool about putting something on paper or writing it on your phone and it not talking back to you, you know. So, and just like you just saying it, because a lot of times I realize with people is they just want someone to listen. They don't want advice. They don't want you to tell your story that's the same as theirs. You know, they just want someone to listen to. And I think writing does that for me, you know, that I can just put something down and I can just walk away and feel good about it, you know. So it is definitely therapeutic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your response as well. I've just put in the Cinespace link in the chat as well. And also just wanted to notify everybody that this session, the recording for this session will be available at the Siraat College YouTube page. That brings us to the end of our presentation today. I'd like to firstly thank all our guest speakers today. We've got Mobinah, MK, Abdi, Aiden, Kauthar, and Daniel from Cinespace. Thank you all for being here and putting on an amazing program. I'd also like to thank all our guests that attended and participated in every way. Some of you came up with some very, very inspiring questions. I can see that there is quite a bit of interest generated there from this presentation. I'd like to thank our wonderful partners. So that means all our wonderful friends at Whittlesea Interfaith Network, City of Whittlesea, Victoria Police, St Monica's College, Our Race, Cinespace, and Siraat College also for allowing this, supporting this program as a part of the Interfaith Youth Forum. And of course, we'd also love to thank the Victoria Government for funding this initiative end-to-end as a grassroots initiative for tackling racial and religious discrimination. Thank you all for participating this evening. Any final comments? Any final comments, anybody? Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum, which means
Thank you
peace
for having
upon
us.
you. Have a good night, everybody.
See ya. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.